Hello again, my friend, and welcome to episode 4 of the Watch Orakix Designer Interview Series. Today, we meet with Vayder, and no, his name is not Darth, it's actually Brian Benton. So on that note, let's bring him on. Alright, Brian, how's it going? It's good to see you, man.
Hey Darren, how you doing?
Not too bad. How's life treating you over across the pond?
Not too bad, not too bad. It's raining at the moment. Hopefully you can't hear it 'cause it's hitting against my roof. So,
Nope, nope, can't hear it. But isn't it always raining over there? Isn't that just life for you?
well, of course, yeah, yeah. Grey sky, rain. That's what we deal with. Bowler hats and umbrellas.
Speaking of which, for those of you watching that don't know, where are you from?
So I live in South London in England. I live near a town called Wimbledon. You may have heard of, where the tennis is played. So I'm about 10 minutes away from there.
Right on.
That's the area I grew up and went to school.
Right on. Yeah, I've been to London.
Oh, okay,
It's the only, like, the UK is the only place I've ever been outside of my country. So
right,
that,
okay. And was it raining the whole time?
actually, no. I mean, it did rain a little bit, but it was like the hottest week that they said they've ever seen in a long time. Like, we were, I mean, I don't know. I know you guys talk Celsius and stuff. I don't really get Celsius, but it was like I think 85, 90 when we were in London for 3 days.
Oh,
So
okay. Yeah, it's probably like in the 30s.
somewhere around 28 or 30, I think Celsius,
Yeah, yeah.
which they say it's not, that doesn't happen too often.
We probably get it every year now. We've had it. We had it throughout the summer this year. Actually, it's definitely getting hotter each year.
Oh, yeah.
It's probably happening everywhere, but yeah, we have high 30s in the last couple of years, which is pretty unusual over here. It's like 38. It's probably hitting 100 Fahrenheit, somewhere near there.
Yeah.
And I know
Yeah.
that's like near as hot as places like Texas or wherever else, but over here, that's kind of very unusual.
Yeah. Well, man, so we obviously know you're a watch designer, but what do you do for a living besides that?
So I actually work in IT. Have done for about 20 years nearly, I think now. I work for quite a large media corporation, quite well known over here. Just on kind of back end database systems. It's pretty dry. It's not the most, you know, entertaining job in the world, but it's all right. It
A lot
pays the bill.
of, did you try turning it off and back on?
I used to do that, yeah. That was where I first started. I was a support guy who kind of answered the phone and did everything you could to not have to come to your desk and actually fix the thing. But yeah, I moved into different teams since then, and it's a little bit more involved now.
Right on. So then if you're doing that, how did you get into watch design?
Um, well, watch design specifically was probably the usual story from a lot of the designers at Facer. Is I got bought a watch for Christmas on my birthday. My birthday's like 2 days after Christmas, so sometimes I get like joint presents. Um, and that was coming up to 2 years ago. So I've always kind of liked to dabble with changing like desktop wallpapers and designing my own skins for apps and things like that. And so when I got a smartwatch, that was one of the first things I did. Is how do I change the face on this thing, and can I design my own faces? And that's when I discovered Facer, and it was it's quite simple to get into and do that. So that's I kind of just jumped in really.
It's funny because all the designers that I talk to, when they first get their first watch is like, oh, I can customize this. That's what I want to do. That's like the first thing I want to do. But then there's so many people out there that, typically at work, when I see someone come in with a smartwatch, I tend to ask them, like, hey, how often do you change the face on that? And like the people that don't care about the customization, they're like, oh, you can change it. I'm like, yeah.
That's not the coolest thing.
It's
Yeah,
like, oh,
this
there's
thing.
like 10. There's like 10 on here. I pretty much only like one. I'm like, well, you can get like thousands and thousands of other ones. You know, he's like, oh, really? Like most people seems like don't really know unless they're actually super interested in like designing them. So I thought that
Yeah,
was really
I
weird,
definitely
that
think it's
disconnect.
yeah, absolutely. I think it's kind of lower down on their list of priorities when they buy these things. You know, they want to see the time and their text messages, or you know, it's cool that it connects to their phone. But definitely, when like you have spoken to other designers, it's just like changing the looks of things. I guess in my head, I've always been like that. You know, on my phone, I have one wallpaper, and then the next day I just want to change it. I just constantly change it. Even when I'm designing things, I'm like, I want to move on to the next design already before I'm even halfway through this one.
Oh God, I know.
I
I
don't know if
have
I've
way
got some
too
sort
many.
of, yeah, design ADHD or something like that, where you just can't wait to see the next one really before you're happy with the one you're on.
Right.
But I
So,
had a bit a few. Sorry, I don't want to cut
oh
you off.
no, go
I had a
ahead.
few years ago, and it's kind of a halfway house in a smartwatch sense. You know, you can do some of the things, and that was the thing that annoyed me was that it had a few different faces, but they were kind of a bit bland, and you couldn't really do much with them. And so when I got the fully fledged Galaxy Watch, that was kind of the first thing I wanted to do on it.
Awesome. Do you think that you know, the whole faces thing is gonna continue to grow, and more people will be aware of that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I don't see why not. I think as the tools get more advanced and probably more simple to use for people who aren't used to using design tools or coding tools, you know, that's more reason for them to just jump in and change things. And it's going to be the way it goes. I mean, I think Apple Watches, you have to use your phone to design the watch face yourself. So you can see that kind of maybe going with other kind of like the Android face tools and things like that.
Yeah, making it a little easier on the user that may not really understand the whole how we do it on our end. So I guess that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I think definitely for the more advanced faces, you're going to still need to use desktop tools or you know that kind of approach because you need to input some sort of code in to be able to use the functionalities to the full effect. But for the more simple things where people just want to change pictures and do that kind of thing, yeah, there's no reason why it can't be on a phone.
I think it's a nice stepping stool to kind of get people that aren't necessarily interested in that, you know, maybe have them a little closer to the customization that might make it a little more interesting, and maybe they would look further into, you know, the design process. Um,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
so when you're designing, do you have a favorite style that you like to design, like analog, digital, hybrid, or something along those lines?
Um, uh, Up to this point, I'm pretty mixed bag. I think I started off just doing the analog designs to begin with, mainly because that was just how I wanted to learn how the tools worked, and I was just going for the simple end of things. You know, how to export the graphics in the right resolutions for these things. I knew how to use Photoshop and Illustrator, and I'm comfortable with those tools. But I had briefly tried the Galaxy Designer, and wasn't happy with the results. I'd obviously done something wrong. So when I started with Facer, I was like, just get the basics right. Just start with basic kind of analog watches, even though sometimes it's easier to design a digital one. Um, but yeah, I've kind of progressed more to the kind of digital and hybrid end at the moment. That's kind of where my head's at. But I definitely want to go back and do some more analog things. Um, you know, one design I've always meant to do and just never got around to doing it was just like a classic kind of aviator design. I don't know why I haven't done it to now, but I probably will at some point in the next few months try and get around to that.
Well, I like the that one that you're working on now. I'm not sure if you've leaked that information or when that's coming out, but the one that you're currently working on, I'm definitely digging it. Um,
Thanks. Yeah, that should be out in the next possibly a couple of weeks, maybe even a week's time. I don't know, but haven't quite published that one yet. That's
yeah, it'll probably be live by the time this goes out because we got like another 2.5 weeks or three
oh, okay,
weeks or
yeah,
something.
yeah, yeah. It should be out by then. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was that's called SF23, I think that one.
Yeah,
Um, so that's another hybrid one. Yeah,
yeah,
a
that
little
one's
bit of
gonna be
animation.
cool. Definitely check that one out, guys. Um, so do you
My
have
promo.
a? Sorry, what was it?
Thanks for the promo.
Yeah. It's cool though. I like how it opens up, you know, and it's definitely cool. I like how it leaves a little V too. I'm sure that was intentional, but um, anyway, do you have like a favorite smartwatch? I know you said you went towards Samsung at first.
That's the only one I've got at the moment, really. The Samsung. I haven't really even like had a Wear OS one to test with or anything like that, so I couldn't comment on how good they are or which one's the best out of that bunch. I really like the look of the Tag Hour one. I can't. Is it connected? Tag connected, maybe.
Uh, the connected is the Armani one, I
Oh,
believe.
that's right. Yeah. Um, but the tag, and I think they do like a golf edition, and I like the look of that one. That's quite nice, but it might be a little bit out of my reach for now. I think they're $1,000 plus or
Oh yeah, a little
approaching
bit
that,
out of
that
reach
sort
for me
of price
too.
range. So I might hold back on that for another month or two, should we say?
Right. All right. Well, so we've got like a little bit of a slideshow to show you guys. We're moving into the workflow section, so I'm really excited for this part. Um, we've got like some different screens here and there to show you, and it's basically how, if I'm not mistaken, how your Nova Core essentially went from conception to finished. And there's a lot of different screens in there, and I'm really excited about this because Nova Core was like literally the face that I saw that I was like, okay, I gotta know who this is, and that's when I first checked you out. So so that's pretty cool. So go ahead and watch that, and while we're doing that, I'll just let you kind of maybe explain a little bit about your process on how you go from, like I said, that idea to a finished face.
Yeah, sure. Okay. Um, well, first off, the reason I chose Novacore was I happen to have some of those images around still. I hadn't backed them up properly of my laptop, so it was quite handy to have. Um, so usually to begin with, like the first stage is the all important kind of inspiration stage. Where to get the idea from? And um, sometimes an idea just pops in your head and it's fully formed, and you can't explain why that's come. It's just there, and you're ready to go with it. You just put that down on either paper or straight into design. But oftentimes for me, I find that it's usually just a seed of an idea. Like you just spot something, and it could be a color combination or I don't know, like a shadow or a shape or something. Like just it could be something very abstract, nothing to do with watches. And oftentimes it could be more to do with something like a car or I don't know, an airplane or whatever. And I think some of the other designers that have been on your interviews before have said similar things as well. So it seems to be a bit of a theme. Um, so the ones that I sent over for Novacore, what actually set that off was the back of a car that I saw on Instagram. I think it's the Polestar 2. It's like an electric car that I hadn't even heard of before. I just saw this picture and of this brake light, and it kind of fired off something. I thought, well, I wanted to do something quite cool with that. Wasn't sure how I was going to work that into a watch face at all, but I just kind of I like the red glow and against the white, and it kind of had that sort of futuristic feel to it. So that's kind of where the seed came from. Um, so after doing that, then I moved into sketching the design, trying to just get the ideas onto a bit of paper. And usually when I do a sketch, it's really basic. I've got like a little Lasix sketchbook, and I literally use a jam jar to trace around for a circle. I don't even have a compass. I don't know why I don't have a compass, but I don't have one. And I just find anything that can fit inside that page that makes a circle. So I just go with that, and then just start putting the shapes down. How I can work that initial idea of that brake light into the design, and then obviously because it's going to probably be in the middle of the screen, it's going to get in the way. So for me at the time, I was like, well, what if it opened up and I use that as the kind of the feature of it. You know, the brake light's there when it's shut, but then when it opens up, you got like a digital display. So that's kind of how I was thinking with that one. So after sketching in the book, I would move into the sort of design phase in Illustrator. So I tend to use Illustrator probably about 95% of the finished product comes from Illustrator. I use Photoshop only to do sort of small touches at the end, and even then, sometimes I don't even use it at all. Really, just depends on the design. Um, so yeah, sorry, I don't have any kind of process videos at this point because it'd probably just be me kind of doing undo, redo, undo. Oh, let me just move that. No, I like it over there. And yeah, so I do that a lot, and it takes me a long time to kind of get through these designs. But you know, as long as I'm happy at the end of it, it's kind of all worth it. It's,
Yeah.
um,
Well, that makes
so,
sense.
sorry, Darren. Go on.
I said that makes sense. I mean, um, there's a lot of adjustments, especially once you put it on the watch and you're like, oh, that's too small, I can't see it, or that's too big, it's taking up too much room. So I think we all go through that process where we just move stuff around and resize and just retest and just to make sure that everything works. So that makes sense for sure. But one thing I find quite interesting so far after talking to a couple of you guys now is that it seems like there's two camps. There's the Illustrator camp and the Photoshop camp. Most people
Yeah.
don't seem to be like nice right in the middle. They're usually on one side or the other, and I find that
Well, you
interesting.
know, no, that is just right. I mean, Illustrator gets a lot of hate, I think, and yeah, maybe rightly so. It's not the easiest tool to kind of pick up and run with. I was used to be like just Photoshop only, and hated Illustrator. I couldn't get on with it at all. And then I'd used it a few times, but when I started doing when I started doing watch face design, so that's kind of forced me into it because I knew that once I got to grips with it, it'd be easier to do things like creating shapes that are reusable and movable at scale. Um, just things like rotating elements. It's so quick and easy to do in Illustrator once you know how to do it. It's really quite simple actually. Uh, once you find out the shortcut to do it. So simple things like that can speed the process up. So like you can put like the number 12 on and you just hit repeat, 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 and it just you've got a whole clock face in seconds. So
I'm
little,
jealous about that.
probably little tips that we should probably publish. Just never get around to doing it. I
Yeah,
remember I was thinking of doing not similar to what you're doing proper interviews, but I was thinking of just doing very short clips of how to do a watch face in under a minute, just things like that. You just never get around to it. I don't know. Time just gets eaten up, and
yeah.
you're
With
working on the next thing or whatever.
time gets eaten up with moving stuff around too much. Like, oh, I
Well,
gotta get this
it's that as
perfect. Yeah, well, I would definitely like that. I mean, after I kind of get this whole process with the interviews down, and I can kind of have a routine and knock them out quicker. I definitely want to start moving into the tutorials and quick tips and tricks. So, one of the
yeah,
things I wanted to do was have some guest designers come on and show us some cool stuff and some tricks that maybe I don't know. And I don't have
yeah.
Illustrator, so I'll definitely be knocking on your door again saying, "Hey buddy, I need you to show me how to do this on Illustrator."
Well, I think one of the benefits to Illustrator is the format that you can push things out in quite quickly. You can reuse in other apps as well. I mean, obviously you can do that in Photoshop. Don't get me wrong, but um, you can retain those shapes that you can just quite easily, you know, retexture or put another shadow on it or whatever in Photoshop,
Right.
or reuse After Effects if you're doing video work, or put it into Blender if you want to then do more of it and extrude it or whatever. Not that I know anything about Blender at all whatsoever. I'm just purely guessing here, but that's
Well,
your
no, you're not wrong. The SVG, I could pop it straight into Blender and, like you said, extrude it out. So you just give me like an SVG and bam, it's instantly 3D. It's pretty nice. But that's one thing that I want to learn more about Illustrator because I don't actually have it. I don't use it, so um, that would be pretty handy to know. Um, so
Well, I would
after
almost go as far as saying I like it, but almost.
so after you do all your Illustrator stuff, you just kind of maybe do a couple touch ups with Photoshop, and then you just build the face
Yeah, so
from there.
yeah, definitely. What I normally test as I'm going along. So the first test I do is I just do a full mock-up of what I think is going to be the finished design, just completely flat though, all on one layer, just to see how it looks on the watch, see if there are like going back to the moving things around, see what needs to be moved around, see if text is legible, because we're dealing with such tiny screens. What looks great on your monitor or your laptop at high resolution doesn't necessarily translate well when it's pushed down that small. Um, so yeah, I'll export all the files out, but I would start testing with a kind of full mock-up, and then just gradually start importing stuff into Facer to build the layers up.
Right on. Um, so kind of going back to the beginning a little bit, you were talking about inspiration of the car's tail light. I find that really interesting because um, not not the current watch that I'm working on now that you probably have seen or will see soon in the background. Um, it's one of the ones that I have like this idea floating in my brain that I'm really itching to like get started on because I want to like every time I have that like initial inspiration I'm like, oh, I got to start this. And that's why I never finish anything cuz I'm not done with the last one. But it's interesting you said that because that particular face that's like swimming around in my head right now is actually inspired by the headlights of the new Subarus.
Oh,
Um,
okay, yeah. I
so
don't
they
think I've
have
seen.
they have these kind of cool little shapes to their headlights and that kind of was like, oh, I saw them in the rear view mirror while I was driving somewhere and I'm like, oh, I want to make that into a face. So yeah, like yeah,
That's
inspiration.
often the way, isn't it? You just get a glimmer of something, and then that's kind of like, how can I work that into design? And usually it's nothing to do with what the end product's going to be.
Right. So, do you have any specific like places that you go to try to find inspiration, or is it just you basically just wait for it to hit you in the face?
I mean, there's the kind of usual channels of Instagram or Pinterest. So what I would look on those things, but like I think someone said this before, if you look for specific things like watches, you kind of get influenced by them rather than inspired by them. So you can end up copying elements rather than creating something more original. So that's although you look at I would look at them if I'm not designing a watch just to because I'm interested in seeing them really just what other people do. I wouldn't necessarily look at them for inspiration because
Mm-hmm.
they sometimes take you down the wrong path really. So what I would do is yeah, it's a hard one really because it does just kind of hit you most of the time, And I couldn't just sit down in front of my computer and think, what am I going to design next, and just hope it happens because I have tried that and you just end up sitting there looking at a blank screen for hours. Uh, that just doesn't work for me at all. So normally, like we've just said, something small will just trigger something, and even then, you might not even get like a full idea of what you want to do, and it will just linger. And then maybe then I'll go onto something like Instagram or Pinterest, or probably more likely Pinterest because you can search for things that are more like what you're thinking of at the time,
Right.
um, and then develop it from there. So what I would then do from there, from collecting ideas, would be create a mood board. But I use an app called Millernote. I think I sent you a screenshot of some backgrounds or something that I've got collected. and that just allows me to just focus a little bit more. So while Pinterest is great for collecting ideas, I find it's quite busy. So when you're looking at one picture, you've also got 20 other pictures popping up. Oh, you might like this, you might like that, and it can be a bit distracting. So I tend to save the ones I like and then just put them into Millernote, and that way I can just focus on the exact kind of route I'm trying to take with something.
Yeah, that's handy. That's handy for sure. Um, I think that's pretty good advice. Being able to kind of take your inspiration photos and kind of block out the rest of the noise, because you could quickly find yourself going from inspired to just like captivated by your scrolling. Let's continue scrolling
Yeah,
and
oh
not
yeah. I
really
mean,
get there.
I get sore thumbs from Instagram. Just flicking through. Your brain just kind of gets into kind of muscle memory, doesn't it? Where you're just used to scrolling, even if you don't really want to. You're just kind of doing it by deep.
Yeah.
Even if you see something you really like, oh yeah, that's good, that's great. Those elements are great, and then you've gone past it and you can't get back to it because the feed refreshes or whatever.
Yeah.
It gets frustrating more than anything else. But we shouldn't complain. We never had these tools 10 years ago, so they're all good.
That's true. Um, so what do you think like the hardest part about designing a watch face is?
For me, probably like I've mentioned, is keeping things legible, readable. Keeping the clarity of something when you trying to make it small on a tiny screen, really. And I think that's especially true when you're doing kind of information heavy designs like dashboards, things like that. Tends to be more the digital ones than the analog. Excuse me, analog ones. So that's a challenge because if it's not readable, you then have to change the sizing of it, and if you've just changed the size of one element, you're probably going to have to do it to more than one element, just to keep the design balanced and making sure like all the fonts are either within only a few different variations. Is what you don't want is like 5 things on the screen and they've all got different size fonts and they've all got different colors and they've all got, one's got shadow, the other ones haven't got shadows and things like that, because it looks a little bit kind of mishmash. So it's trying to keep things in a kind of design state.
Right. Yeah, for sure. Um, so speaking of the hardest part for designing watches, all you watching right now, leave a comment in the comment section about what the hardest part for you is, because as I'm moving through these interviews and I'm shifting towards doing the tutorials now, I'd really like to know, what you users that are watching these videos are actually struggling with, so I can attack like the important ones first, like the ones that a lot of people are struggling with, so we can try to like help people kind of become better designers. So yeah, definitely leave a comment. What's the hardest part about designing your faces? And speaking of designing for other new designers, what advice do you think you'd give to new designers?
Yeah, that's a tough one, really. I would say just kind of just have fun with it at the beginning. Just enjoy doing it, and also just kind of go crazy with your ideas. The platform's free to use. Make the most of it. So just publish as many designs as you can. Just throw all the crazy ideas you got, all the stupid ideas that you think won't work, because out of maybe one of those, you'll get an idea for something that will work, that you can maybe put into another new design. And then what that will also give you is it will just give you a bit more confidence using the tools, and kind of honing how you want to proceed with it, really. So yeah, I mean, going forward with that, you want to be enjoying what you're doing, definitely, because there's nothing worse than kind of putting out something that you don't like, because
Right.
it's just kind of flattens your mood, doesn't it? It's kind of like, yeah, I'm not happy with this, I'm just going to put it out anyway. But you know as long as you like it, it doesn't matter if nobody else likes it. Just put it out there.
True. So, do you have any other favorite designers?
Yeah, tons. Loads. I could list. Do you want me to list them all? I think from when I first started, so I sort of started a Facer about it was last January, so what's that, 20 months or something like that. And there was kind of an established group of designers then, so I kind of definitely got a lot of inspiration from those guys, and they're still around. So you got like GRR and Gels, and Dario, yourself, Tamaja Designs, and all those guys. And actually, like your LED design, LED 100 was the first one I saw. I was like, oh wow, hold on, what's he done with this one? The way that the wake animation come on and the masking used on that kind of set me on a path to doing some of the digital ones I do now, really.
Right on.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Because what I was looking for was kind of layer mask. I was like, how has he done this? How have you managed to make this animation look like there's little LEDs going around and everything like that? That was definitely a kind of an eye-opening moment for me, I think.
Right on. Well, I'm glad I was able to influence you for the good.
No, yeah, it's absolutely true. I mean, I didn't tell you this before, so I thought I'd like surprise you with that one. But but that kind of led to, I think I was doing VORB, I think it was at the time, and that's just got really basic kind of like seconds ticks going around the edges. But I hadn't seen loads of faces doing that at the time. And I was just like, what's the best way of doing this? And so I looked into yours a bit more and kind of got a lot of ideas about the masking techniques you were using there. So yeah, thanks for that. That helped me out.
Yeah, yeah, good. I'm glad that I was able to help you, even though I had no idea I was helping. It's
But like going back to like designers, certainly from the current crop that's around now. I mean, those guys I mentioned, most of those are still around, obviously including yourself. And there was like a kind of a group of us that became partners around the same sort of time, and those guys are all doing some really good stuff at the moment, like Generator and Cyberpunk and Trafford you've had on already, and then you've got the other guys that hopefully will be on soon. I don't know, Michael O'Day, Al Marinov. So we kind of came through at the same time, and they're sort of pushing crazy numbers. I think they just kind of left me behind. They're going, publishing tons and tons of designs and really good quality stuff as well. So all those guys are doing really good stuff. And then you've got like the new guys coming through. So I think that's the other thing as well, is like you can't sit still, because there's always someone new that's got fresh ideas coming through and pushing some really good stuff out there.
Yeah, for sure. Um, yeah, I know how you guys feel. Most of the people that came on kind of shortly after me have surpassed me so much because I like I said many a times, I have like 20 plus faces that are just sitting there on the back burner. Like I need to just finish these, but instead I'm making new designs. Like, hey, I've got this Subaru idea that I'm going for. I got to get that started, and then whatever one I was working on when I started that one just kind of goes back to that archive of unfinished land. So
But imagine what it's going to be like when you finally finish all these designs and you hit publish. You're going to have like 100 watch faces filling up everyone's feeds
yeah,
all at once. Just be like, now I'm ready. Bang. Yeah,
yeah,
like
yeah.
that.
I'll just like skyrocket at that point.
Yeah, yeah. You put up the charts.
um. So then, speaking of other designers, do you have a favorite face that you find yourself like always gravitating to that you didn't create?
Um, I mean, obviously I've mentioned your one as well, but I don't download a ton of them. I did to begin with, obviously, because that was the reason I kind of joined up. Was like, just wanted faces for my watch. But I guess the one I go back to that's not mine at the moment, it's probably been Rutherford Pro that Trafford did.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of a really clean design, and it's got stripes on it, which is always a winner. So
Yeah. Stripes. When in doubt, stripe it out.
Well, they make it go faster as well, so it's
That's
always
true.
good. I mean, to be honest, most of the time I just have what I'm testing on my watch. Just because it just takes me so long to do a design, there's just always got a test face on it from one design or another.
Yeah, I feel you. I'm in the same boat. I have like Facer Premium, but I always end up having my stuff because I'm working on so many different ones. I'm just okay. I don't know.
Yeah,
Maybe I'll
I think I need to
consider
get a
revising
separate
my
one that I
question.
just test on, and I can actually wear some other people's cool designs on the other one.
Yeah,
That's the idea.
sometimes when I'm really trying to cram out the testing and get a face done, I'll be wearing a wearOS on one hand and a Samsung on the other. Like make sure they're working on both platforms. You could go to the store with two watches and look at me all funny.
Yeah,
um,
you never be late there, will you?
say what was that?
You'll never be late.
Oh
You'll
yeah,
always have the time on you. Yeah.
right. So do you have like a favorite face of yours, something that you're like the most proud of?
I think not necessarily like a favorite, as in like I prefer the design to all the others, but the one I'm kind of most happy with was Revs, and that was because that the way it looks was exactly how I imagined it to begin with, and when I sketched it, and then everything I wanted to do with it, like animation wise, just worked the way I wanted it to work, which rarely happens for me. I kind of have to make compromises here and there, but that one I managed to kind of you know get not necessarily first time. Took a little bit of work, but I got it to a really sort of happy point with that. So it wasn't the most popular design by any means. Um, I don't, you wish you could tell how popular things are going to be. Or I think that was mentioned last time by Cyberpunk. He was saying, you could put one so you think, yeah, it's not that great, but I kind of like it, and it'll blow up. It'll do really, really well. And then other ones you think are going to be a hit, just tumbleweed. Uh,
Yeah, I think we all deal with that. It's just kind of like people like what they like. But that just
yeah.
kind of goes back to that point where you made, saying just as long as you like it, then throw it out there and
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
people are going to take it or
I
not.
think that's part of that is to do with kind of what you've put into a design. You know why you're doing the design and what's inspired it, but nobody else does. They just see the finished article, and it might not have that kind of same impact that's in your head.
Right.
And
That's a good way of thinking about it because I think that's like really true. Um, the inspiration that we have that we create something out of nothing. That for us it's like that's like a big journey, but for everyone else it's like seeing them for the first time, like you said, they just see the end of that process. So that makes sense. I never really thought about it like that, but I like that.
yeah,
Um
it's tricky to think in the head of the user that's going to use your design. It's because you're seeing it through different eyes and a different approach. It's not an easy thing to do by any means. Not
right.
something like
Well, man, we're getting towards the end of this thing. It's actually kind of running a little bit long, so we should probably start ending it here. Do you have any questions for me?
yeah, I was kind of thinking of while we're doing this. A bit of an abstract one, I guess. So if you could design a smartwatch for a brand that exists out there, like a Rolex or an Amiga, and you had a kind of carte blanche to do what you want, what brand do you think you'd represent? What one would you go for?
Hmm. That's a tough one, honestly, because to be perfectly honest, when it comes to designing faces and stuff, I came into this with pretty much no watch knowledge. Like, I loved watches in a sense that I always wanted one on my wrist.
Yeah,
Um, but like I had mentioned in other interviews, like I used to have just like a $12 Walmart watch on my wrist all the time because I'd be out skateboarding or, doing something. I'd smash it on something or hit it on, a table or a door jam because I'm not paying attention. And I would demolish my watches. So I never wanted to spend like a fair amount on like a really nice looking watch. So I never really paid too much attention to the brands. It's something that I've like started learning more about now that I am kind of more of a watch enthusiast. Like smartwatches kind of really sparked my interest in them, and so I'm learning a lot more about them now. But on the mechanical side, I don't really know a whole lot about them, to be honest. Um, I
Yeah,
do.
fair enough. Kind of
I
agree with a lot of that actually. I wasn't kind of a watch enthusiast before getting into this.
Yeah. So I'd honestly have to say, I would want to design for the brand that liked my work enough to reach out and ask me to design for them, whoever
Uh,
it ends up being.
nice dodge. Yeah.
Yeah, because honestly, I don't know. I mean, the only actual mechanical watch I have right now is a Casio, the
I was
Edifice.
actually thinking Casio. Yeah, because I think you'd have a bit more freedom with what you do.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
I do. From what I've seen, I do really like that style. I'm not a super Rolex guy, like the big circles and triangle indices, like the really in your face large ones with not a
Yeah.
whole lot of else going on. That's not really my style. But the Casios tend to have a lot of little intricacies and like some 3D elements into it and doesn't look so flat. So, I mean, if I had to pick one, I would probably go that route. I mean, it's the only actual mechanical watch I own, so I'd brand them technically.
Good answer.
All right, man. Well, it was good talking with you. I appreciate you taking the time to sit down with us and answer all these questions. And
No, that's good.
I
Thanks for
hope
asking.
everybody enjoyed watching all the cool artwork that we were able to put on screen for you guys. So, anyway, I'll let you go. Thanks again. I appreciate it. And we'll catch you soon. Sure.
Yeah, thank you. See you later.
Thanks for joining us in this episode. If you enjoyed the show, make sure to hit that like button and consider sharing to help other people find it. If you want more videos like this, tips and tricks, as well as tutorials, consider hitting that subscribe button and ringing the bell so you don't miss an episode. Also, I just really want to say thank you to everybody. I greatly appreciate all of your support. And also leave a comment down below if there's any specific designers that you'd like to see me interview, and I'll definitely consider doing them soon. Thanks again, and I'll catch you later. Take care, everyone.